Good morning. I'm Cullum Hasty, and it is July the 6th, 2013, and today we're going to take a look at the beautiful new river trail system in Bonita here. Cullum's Trail is finished. I am so happy to say. This has been in the works for approximately 14 years, and thanks to the city of Bonita and to Lee County and to Ray Judah and to Gary Price and a lot of others, including all of the city council members and staff of Bonita, and phase one is done, and we'll be looking at that this morning. So off we go. Here's one. We are having a what I consider a wonderful rainy season so far this year. I think most people would agree that it's wonderful to see a really productive, really heavy rainy season after so many years of dry weather, which we have had lately. This tree is a perfect example of what happens. This is just covered with beautiful shoestring fern, an endangered species, golden rabbit's foot fern, abundant on this tree, and a lot of different varieties of moss, some lichens. There's a lichen there, mosses here, 2 or 3 different species, and it's just a great example of how much the trees in this area love the rainy season. Here's an interesting thing we could talk about for a minute. Like a lot of plants, these shoestring fern appear to be fairly dormant during the dry season, and as soon as the rain sets in real nice, they start sending out little curlicue shoots right out of the top. When you see those starting to come out, you know that plant is happy, doing well, and growing. Here's a relative of the poison ivy right here called Virginia creeper, which is a native vine, but overabundant. That one's really a nice one. Yeah, these spores that you see on the undersides of these leaves are how these golden rabbit's foot ferns propagate. Here's an interesting plant that doesn't look so interesting yet, but soon these little berries that you see on the end of this branch here, these little berries will turn beautiful, very bright purple. And they're popular with the birds. They're beautiful to look at, and they're called beautyberry. It's purple. These are the stairs up to the top of Mount Bonita. I named this Mount Bonita kind of tongue-in-cheek because it's the highest elevation anywhere in this part of Bonita. Probably, it may be the highest elevation in Bonita. And it's been here, we know this elevated area has been here a long time because there's a cabbage palm growing out of the top of this mound, growing right out of the very top. It's at least 60 years old, 70 years old. It's a full-grown cabbage. And so this mound has been here a long time. We're not exactly sure what the mechanism was that formed this, but it's unusually high elevation for this part of the world. And these stairs I put in with the help of Professor Green and some of his volunteers, the students from FGCU, and we put in 29 stairs on this primitive trail portion of our trail, leading down to the canoe and kayak launch. Boy, I've never seen this moss look better. Look how great that stuff's looking. Okay, now here we are at the beginning of the trail, the the Cullum's Trail down to the canoe and kayak launch. And this part of the trail goes to the same place the old primitive trail over by Mount Bonita goes. They both wind up at the same spot. This one is ADA compliant, that one's not. But the good news is they both wind up at the canoe and kayak launch, which is also ADA compliant. And this is one of our 7 new structures. This is a beautifully built boardwalk bridge, and we have 7 of those that we'll be seeing as we walk along here. And this is right here the main river. This is the old Imperial River before they dug the Kiel Canal. This was it right here. This is where the Imperial River ran through this portion of Bonita. And here is our a really nice canoe kayak launch and wheelchair ramp, depending on what the level of the water is at the time. This is right now, once the water reaches this level, this is great as a canoe kayak launch. Yeah, this right here, this turns out to be a great spot to watch fish swimming around in this shallow water that show up well against the shell surface underneath, and also fishing spiders. And it's just a really interesting nature observing spot. When the water is low during the season, out there underwater, about 1.5 feet underwater, is the canoe kayak dock on the edge of the river. That's when the water's low. So we've got it covered from up high to down low. Now you can see what the water level is now. 6 days ago, the dock on the edge of the river was about 1.5 feet up out of the water, and now it's a couple of feet underwater, and the water's actually come up. I think it's come up so far 6.5 feet in the last week. Yeah, I think it is somewhat surprising to a lot of people that aren't very familiar with this area that this water came up 1 foot a day, actually over a foot a day for the last 5 days. It went from 2.5 feet on July the 1st to so it's about almost 9. It's almost 8.5 now. So it came up about 6 feet already. One interesting thing, another interesting thing here, is that this trail is just loaded with little spots where you can step off the trail and walk to the river's edge and just explore around a little bit. It's just a beautiful area. It's really very natural, relatively undisturbed. Just really beautiful. This is a very interesting fern. This is called resurrection fern. And during the dry season, you would think it died. You'd think it was completely dead. It's all shriveled up. It's brown. Lays flat against the bark, and after, all it needs is about 2 hours of rain and some shade, and it does this. It pops up and looks brand new. And then of course during the wet season it starts sending out shoots and growing rapidly, but it's just amazing how it pops up when it gets wet, and it can stay dry for years and years and stay alive. As soon as it gets wet, 2 hours, and it looks brand new again. And it prefers the live oaks. That's its favorite spot. This area we're coming up on right now is interesting because During the dry season, this is called the Waterfall because it is a waterfall. You get about probably about a foot drop of the water from the east side over to the west side. It drops about a foot right here. And but now, because the water's come up 6 feet since it was at its low level, you don't see the waterfall anymore. It's underwater. This is a great spot right here that we're coming up on. This is an area where the water gets a little agitated back here in this narrow area where the waterfall is, and so there are always bubbles on the surface, and then it goes through this very windy area here. Thus the old name of this river, which was the Corkscrew River, by the way. It used to be called that before I don't know, somebody got the wise idea to name it a fancier name, and they called it the Imperial River. But this was the Corkscrew River, and it corkscrews right here very obviously, and it's really pretty. Isn't that neat the way it does that? Look at that. Yeah, I was mentioning that as the water comes through the waterfall area back there, the narrow area, and gets agitated a bit, and then again right here there happen to be some tree limbs down in the water which agitate it a little further because it's flowing fairly fast. It tends to get looks foamy, and that's a naturally occurring protein in the water that's easily turned to foam by agitation. And but it's actually nice when it happens here because it gives you an opportunity to even better notice the serpentine shape of the river right in here, and it's perfectly natural, and it's not soap suds or pollution or anything. It's normal. Now, in case anyone thinks that the water is high right now, the water is a lot higher than it was, but it's not high yet. It's average now. That line right on that tree, that cypress tree, that's the high water line from 1995. And as you can see, I would be where I standing here when the water was at that level. My chin would just be up out of the water. That was in I believe it was October of '95 that water line was created. And those water lines, those high water lines, persist for an amazingly long time. Here's a little serendipitous delight, a good way to see what a strangler fig might happen to do by accident. This is an oak limb that is typical of these sand live oaks. They tend to grow horizontally quite a bit, more so than vertically, some of them. And the strangler fig happened to be in the right spot to look like it caught it, and that's a great example of a strangler fig. Okay, here we are on structure number 7. This is Boardwalk 7, and this is the final boardwalk on phase 1 of the project. We are coming up right now on the DOT, the Department of Transportation property line here. We'll go under I-75 over to property that's adjacent to Oakland Drive, and then the trail will continue along the river. On the other side, we'll have a north-south footbridge on the other side of I-75. We'll be on the south side from there, past Oakland Drive, past the power line easements, past the flea market, and on down to the Dean Street sidewalk. I mean, there's no way you can duplicate this kind of beauty. It's just you either got to have it or not, you know. It's impossible to create this. So we'll be stepping on to phase 2 right here, and hopefully in the near future. And great thanks to Carl Schwing, to all the city staff, of course, and everybody who's been involved in and enthusiastic and trying to push this project forward. I think it's going to be a fantastic thing for the city of Bonita and for all of South Florida. I believe this is going to become a very, very popular place to very conveniently see some real old Florida nature.